Hello, Masters of Fine Arts candidate. My name is Ken Thompson, if you haven't met me yet, and I make games. I teach game design, and I've served on multiple committees here at the university in the admissions process, advising Masters of Arts, Masters of Fine Arts, and PhD candidates, all the way into launching their careers and Kickstarters. This video is meant to provide my expectations and a framework for you to complete an interactive media experience. This might be entertainment, educational, serious, or experimental. It might exist in virtual reality, augmented reality, alternative reality, or real reality. And you may not call it a game, but the methods and processes of making interactivity apply. Welcome all our distinguished individuals, and let's game on. You are about to embark on an educational journey into the unknown, but there are still some mile markers that we can put in place to guide you to success. This video reviews my expectations for each semester and lays out acceptable progress, so take note. There are many exceptions, but generally, this is my rubric for deciding to give you a satisfactory or unsatisfactory mark each semester. The one thing this won't cover, though, is specific university paperwork or requirements. This is more generally about your process and milestones. Milestones are also an important concept to learn, so if you're unfamiliar with any of these terms, check out my milestones video linked below. First, what is a Master's of Fine Arts? Well, it's a terminal 3-year degree. In this case, it means that we certify that you are capable of creating a work of art, a work of game in this field, as well as teach others. But you know what I compare it to? The ultimate indie developer experience. Because think about it, so many people go indie, they mortgage their house, they quit their job, they work 40 hours, then heavily invest their spare time on their own ideas. For you MFAs, you get 3 years to train, develop, and work as a research or a teaching assistant in your field. Instead of slinging coffee, you're teaching the subjects that you're using at your work. Not that there's anything bad about slinging coffee, but comparably, it's not building up the skills you need to be a successful game developer. In this ultimate indie experience, you will have access to a group of peers to collaborate with, much like Tolkien's informal literary discussion group at Oxford. You have access to experts in your field capable of guiding you away from the pitfalls and expose you to new perspectives, so talk to them often. You've also got access to labs, equipment, space, software, and many seed investment competitions that UConn and many seed investment competitions that the university offers its students as well as the state around you. It's up to you to harness these opportunities, though. Big words, even professional game developers in the industry don't always get to make what they want. So even from a professional perspective, this is an enviable position. If you're a graduate assistant or teaching assistant, you're literally being paid to go to school and make the game of your dreams. So let's get a little bit more granular. The MFA program is a finite amount of time. It's only 3 years, and this mirrors my own industry experience creating products for movies. There was a specific deadline we had to hit. Failure to do so could mean we could lose up to 50% of our gross profit. So what's your goal? Well, you're going to need to make a unique work of game, which displays mechanical and aesthetic cohesion. It will probably fit into one of these 3 categories, although there's always exceptions. An experience that expertly communicates a well-researched perspective, a thorough exploration of a new technology or gameplay format, such as I Love Bees, or an example of expert craftsmanship in a game-related field, such as the amazing narrative storytelling in The Stanley Parable. This experience will be available for public download, or if it's difficult to do that, a well-documented explanation of what the live game experience was presented to the public, so that if something has like a chronological or experimental component that limits replayability, that's where we would go. In terms of scope, you should think about this as a Kickstarter project. It should demonstrate or an idea, explain your overall themes, and have a playable experience. For the musically inclined, this is an etude, not an opus. That being said, maybe this game is a standalone experience, not necessarily something you're going to work on afterwards, and that's okay too. I can tell you for a fact that Award-winning games can be built with 1,000 hours of work. You heard of Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours of practice makes an expert? Well, 1,000 hours makes a masterpiece. This is doable in your time here. Semester 1 is exploratory. Whatever you think you were going to make when you came into this program is going to change because you're here to learn, change, and grow. As too will your work. So explore. Investigate the university, your colleagues, and reflect on your future work. Make a bunch of throwaway games, 2 weeks max, and dive into some research. Write a bunch of pitches. Occasionally, clients will ask for open submissions and will gleefully write 6 or 10 pitches each. We'll spill them on the table and critique each other's pitches and improve. By the end of the semester, you should have an idea of what you're willing to develop for the next 2 years. Does it have to be the best idea ever? No. It's rare that the idea starts off awesome. Usually it's a diamond in the rough, but you can get a sense of what's interesting to people by showing it to people. Just be sure enough, though, that you're passionate about the subject to sustain you through the tough times. Is the subject interesting enough? Is there enough content for you to be able to pull from? You should be able to present your thesis idea to your selected committee by the end of your fall semester that contains a one-sheet, an artistic statement, and a slideshow pitch. You should think about scheduling meetings with me once a month. Semester 2 is a deep dive. You need to do 2 things in tandem. You must first identify and close any skill gaps required to complete your envisioned thesis. Second, perform an exhaustive investigation of your subject matter. I recommend Zotero as a tool to keep everything in track. Are you trying to push the envelope on bullet hell shmups, or are you trying to capture the essence of Ilinx? Does this project require a mastery of the mocap system? All of this thought should culminate into a game pitch. In the industry, we're very successful when our pitches had 3 elements: a 10-minute stand-up pitch, slide deck presentation along with it, and detailed documentation along with an initial prototype. And usually this prototype is something that took less than 2 weeks to make and utilized off-the-shelf assets, even if they weren't final. So texture swap a robot from another game and pretend that it's another character. Quick and dirty. I suggest doing this as a subtask during your spring break in a game jam format. So put it all together, pick a theme, focus on it, and only do that and, make space for it, 3 days kind of thing. When it comes to what you put on paper for your initial game design document, this is going to take some critical thinking and self-reflection on your part. And we are here to help. But unfortunately, we can't show you the answer. You're going to have to pick something. So once you do, what are you going to do with all these features and skills? Well, you need to perform a risk analysis. In business, a risk analysis is when you say, I don't know. You write down the features of your project. Does your game have multiplayer? Have you already programmed a multiplayer game? If you haven't, put it down as a risk. If you're attempting a horror game, have you ever made anything in the horror genre? Put that down as a risk. How severe is your risk? Are you an expert programmer who merely hasn't had time to open a networking book, or are you a complete novice? From here, you need to capitalize on your strengths, minimize your risks, and that might mean cutting a feature, faking it for the purposes of your MFA project. Maybe you put an AI for the other players, or you identify a plugin, a service, or another student partner who might be able to collaborate with you. One student very successfully pitched their project in seed funding competitions here at the university, earning over $10,000. They're using that money to pay a programmer to extend an existing plugin on the marketplace to suit that student's needs for their game. As a note about collaborators, although lone wolves do exist in our industry, some with frustratingly solid reputations on making award-winning games, but many more are a collaboration of many people. So if you choose to collaborate with another student or with outside assistance, like the student did in that last example, it is mandatory for you to document who you're working with and identify exactly who is contributing what. The easiest and required method of tracking this collaboration is with a source control system, preferably our own. Detailed check-in notes will allow you to track your work and allow your advisory committee to audit your project, which is important. You must keep track of your contributions to the project, and they must be significant enough to earn your MFA degree. So you can't just be doing some side work while everyone else does the work for you. Summer 1, take a break. This is a 3-year marathon, not a sprint, and although it is a very rigorous program, your creative mind needs to rest. The great Miyamoto, he was relaxing in his backyard. He saw a line of ants walking by in the grass carrying leaves towards their hill. He imagined for a moment what it might look like if they were tiny people. And he said that ants, as you know, always have a leader and tend to be carrying things. And as they move, create kind of a rail. And I started thinking about games about a lot of small people carrying things in a line, following a leader with everyone going in the same direction. So that's what he said. And so Pikmin was born. So make sure to take a break. Your second goal during your first summer is to prototype your development and experiment. Either iterate on a single concept over and over again, or create 2-week throwaway projects that explore the risks that you feel you can tackle without classroom support. If networking is concerning, evaluate your options. Maybe you discover you can pull this off as a mod in another game that handles all the irritating matchmaking and provides you with a teeming throng of players already in the service. That's how Dota got started, as a mod of Warcraft 3. Now that gameplay format dominates the video game landscape. By the end of the summer, you should have settled onto your technology, and you need to develop a level design document and task list. I recommend using GitHub Issue Tracker for all of these and its Kanban board system. However, there's plenty of other options as long as it is documented and is easily accessible by your advisory committee. Remember the right technology for the right job, so decide on the development platform that works for you. Semester 3, you should start with a presentation of your summer efforts to your committee and peers, including a playable build of your project that everyone can play. Now begins the iterative feedback process. During this semester, you need to prove all of your technology and gameplay works, at least independently from each other. You don't have to have it all in the same spot. If you're working on a horror game, show me you can manufacture fear in gameplay. If you're narrative heavy, you should have a finished first draft of story by the mid-semester in screenplay format. I suggest you meet with me bi-weekly at this point, and with the rest of your committee at least monthly. Make sure that you're recording feedback and showing how you're digesting it. My recommendation is to go back to GitHub and use the issue tracker to write things down. So if I mention that this needs more panache, create an issue and assign it to me. We can continue the conversation and maintain a log of our conversation and decisions. Make sure you are constantly updating your level design document and game design document as you're taking in feedback. Those are living documents and should communicate the current final vision. The GitHub Wiki is a good place for that, as is Google Docs, as it has a revision history. At the end of the semester, I expect a playable build. One extra note, this is probably approaching deadlines for competitions, grants, and scholarships that might help you in your further work and career, so be on the lookout. There's a lot of opportunities, and you'll see it in my Twitter feed usually. Semester 4 is where we need to establish our final benchmark. So you can assure your committee or your future client that the full experience will be like this without doing all of it. So this is a vertical slice, sometimes called a demo, usually along the lines of something we'd make for E3 or another expo. Most of the time, it's a single level, and it's somewhere in the middle of the video game, but with extra tutorials and guide rails that allow you to play kind of in the middle with extra powers and stuff. Since this is a single book chapter you're making within your thesis, your project's vertical slice should be a sliver of a sliver. So if your whole final level has 5 rooms, have one of them 95% finished so that we can critique and course correct as needed and see how the implementation is. If you're doing a side scroller, I expect all your gameplay to be rock solid within a combat test room, not necessarily all the levels out. You should be meeting with me weekly at this point, and by the end, we should have a playable build that indicates the final experience. Additionally, at this point, I expect to see documented records of weekly feedback. What did you show? What did people say? How did you adjust your work? Beyond your MFA cohort, which is an easy way to do this, but I need to see this feedback, I need to see you documenting it, is with Screenshot Saturdays on Reddit Game Dev. Just make sure it's documented and submit all weeks of feedback in a PDF or some other digestible manner. Summer 2, should be content, content, content. Start cranking on your thesis. Produce builds. Get feedback. Although faculty aren't working during the summer for the most part, I've never said no to a student who's asked me to play their game over the summer. You should be also networking with local game developer meetup groups. Bring a classmate and get used to showing up before the school semester begins, because once the school semester begins, it's going to be way more hectic. This lays the groundwork for your future career opportunities and also gives you valuable feedback from real developers who are in the area. Believe it or not, if you walk up to us in a bar during a networking video game event, which there are, and politely ask for feedback at a later point, many of us will do it. Semester 5 is basically the final semester for development. Your project needs to be in an alpha state by the beginning of your 5th semester, 100% of programming implementation, playable from beginning to end, with approximately 50% of your art assets and content implemented. No need to write backstories for every item in the game and every character that's NPC, but all the main dialogue needs to be there. By the end of the semester, you should have your game in beta or near beta, merely bug fixing. You should be meeting with me weekly at this point, and also text me anytime you have a problem in development that takes you more than 10 minutes to solve. You should be getting engaged and fixing things, because that's what we're there to do at that point. Semester 6, you're done, and sooner than you think. You must exhibit your work publicly during the month of April. So your playable final build needs to be in, with credits, including anyone who worked on your project, your advisors, and a note about you completing the work as part of your MFA program with appropriate logos and attributions, all need to be in. So February and March are just really bug fixing. And if you're in good shape, you'll probably have strong indications as to the outcome of your defense around the January period. At this point, you meet weekly with me for the first 6 weeks, and then bi-weekly or as needed through the second half of the semester. For your defense, I require you to have submitted into the drop-off box a build of your game that works on the lab PC or another platform determined prior to your defense with your committee and agreed upon with your committee. 2, an up-to-date game design doc, level design document, a package of all your source code and a buildable project, a website landing page on the university detailing your project with 10 screenshots, a 2-minute video trailer, and a X minute, however long it is, gameplay, let's play trailer without commentary. 5, a slideshow presentation. 6, a production log that details your time spent over the last 3 years. Whew, that is a lot. What a slog. Hopefully this breakdown is helpful. Here are a couple frequently asked questions. Do you need measurable results? No. Unless you're a PhD candidate, I don't require quantitative results. However, I expect you to collect playtest and user data for your final report, so qualitative data is valuable and useful in your final. What if I'm behind? Oh my God, I'm doomed. Each semester, I expect several specific deliverables for you to pass. However, sometimes games don't come together until the last second. Your advisory board and I will give you a general assessment for where you're at, and there are also a few fail-safes to assist in a dire emergency. However, let's not get to the emergency stage, shall we? There is no one answer to this question, but generally, successful students provide builds often, communicate issues and challenges, and utilize all their advisory board. So put down emails, ask for feedback, however you want to do it, put us all in a chat room together, something like that. My art, it's unique. How do you tell if it's MFA worthy? Well, your advisors are the first line of judgment, but we are comparing you to MFAs in other institutions as well as to your predecessors. The campsite rule says leave a place better than when you found it. Well, leave here with something better than when you came here. This is a ton of information, so digest it. Email me questions. You're embarking into uncharted territory, so we can guide you during your journey. And I will see you in class.